Hi, Mickie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. That again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time to be interviewed today. And I am actually excited to have you on because of where I'm at this point with my own business. And I think press release. I used to think that, only influencers or celebrities need that. But that's the very reason why we need press release to get yourself out there. So, yes, I cannot wait to get into our conversation. So, I'd like to read a bit of introduction for our listeners and then we can get right into it. So, hey everyone, we have Mickie Kennedy here with us. Mickie is an expert at helping small businesses, authors, and startups increase their visibility and credibility through tier one press release distribution. Mickie founded eReleases 25 plus years ago after realizing that small businesses desperately need a press release service they can actually afford, giving them access to the media and to a national newswire, all with a personal touch. The company excels in writing and distributing press releases to journalists, trade publications, and key industry influencers, thereby increasing visibility and credibility and driving more revenue from dream clients. Mickie now lives in Baltimore County with his family and two feuding cats. He enjoys British science fiction and acknowledges an unhealthy addiction to diet soda. Mickie also holds an Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing with an emphasis in poetry from George Mason University. He still writes poetry most Monday nights, virtually with a group of fellow misfits. Wow, what a juxtaposition. Hi, Mickie.
Hi.
Welcome. So, Mickie, tell us, before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, can you share with us what was it like growing up as a Mickie Kennedy?
Well, I was a junior. My father's name was Mickey.
Ah,
And so eh, I knew I was Irish. That's about it. My father did die when I was like 9 in a car accident.
I'm so sorry.
And it was just me. So the only Mickey. But it's been fun. I mean, I think in the 80s there was a song, Hey Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my
Yeah.
mind. So I heard that a lot. Uh, and Mickey Mouse and things like that. So it was okay being a Mickey. But I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have gone as far if I was something else, like a Michael or anything along those lines.
So it's like Mickey in your ID even.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. My legal ID says that.
Until ID says that. Okay. So, Mickey, now we're going into the questions. As a poet, how did you learn to use cutting edge technology to innovate and scale?
So I recognized, being a poet, that I was just going to wait tables and write poetry. And I did that for a summer after I got my MFA. And I realized being on your feet for 10 hours a day is hard. It's hard on your back, hard on your
Yes.
knees and joints.
Uh-huh.
And I always felt so zapped after a long shift. I wasn't reading or writing. So I transitioned to a safe office job at a telecom research startup as employee number 3. And because I had writing on my background, albeit creative writing, they wanted me to write press releases and send them out. And I did, and they didn't do much. But then I started to put my poetry mind in there and like, what are they looking for? And
Mm,
I kind of looked at what good articles were, and I noticed they tended to have a story arc. And I was just publishing our data. So we'd like, oh, here's our telecom data for Caribbean countries, inbound and outbound traffic to the United States. And I was like, they're not interested in the numbers. They want a story. So I was like, well, one of these countries doesn't look like the others. You know, it had more telecom traffic to and from the United States than all the other countries combined. And it was because at the time in the 80s, no, it's the 80s or 90s. It's the 90s. It was like the mid 90s. Internet was just getting started. At that time, this country was a call center for 1-900 numbers, which were really popular in the United States. So people would pay 50 cents a minute to get their horoscope or to talk to a psychic,
oh, yeah.
or they would even get like uh you know pet advice.
Yeah.
Your dog seems like it's depressed. you could talk to us. And they even had them
But
for dating and all kinds of things. And that was the reason. And so I did a press release on that. I sent it out and we got picked up everywhere. Wall Street Journal, The Economist, Financial Times, and Washington Post, and 3 telecom trade publications. I was like, I have figured something out. So I think my
mm-hmm.
poetry mind allowed me to investigate and sort of get really quickly as to what I was doing that was wrong. And and then I just noticed that things like that came easy to me. I would see clients that weren't doing well, and I would just brainstorm with them, and all of a sudden they would do something, and it would, whoa, this blew up, and
Blow
we got
up.
a lot of
Mm,
pickup and stuff like that. So I think that played a big part in it. Now, in the actual day-to-day business,
yeah.
uh, I was a mess. I didn't know math very well. I didn't know, business, and I
I know,
started
Matt. We can
yeah,
collaborate.
I
I'm
started a
probably
Google
accounting
Ads
background.
campaign, and I felt like I was talking to one of these 1-900 psychics. I would look at the ad and I'd say, I created this yesterday. We're not getting a lot of sales. I guess it's not working. And it's had like 17 clicks. And it's like, I didn't know anything about statistical relevance and, A/B split test pages and other things. So I ended up meeting a guy named Perry Marshall who says, hey, I can help you optimize your Google Ads. And what I didn't know is, hey, I'm a business genius and I can help you optimize your business. And so I went into his world and I joined his marketing mastermind, and I was in it off and on for over 10 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot, and that was the necessary education I needed. But I also approached a lot of things with this creative mind. So I was always doing my little tweak to it, and and fun little things. And so it was an interesting little journey. But I do believe that, being a poet has made me better at sort of coming up with uh, newsworthy ideas for businesses and be able to brainstorm something that the media would probably be receptive to. And also, I think it's allowed me to sort of look at the needs in the marketplace and adapt to them. Because when I started, I just sent press releases by email to journalists I had reached out to. So when I was sending releases at that telecom research company in the 90s, I was faxing. And then all of a sudden, it's like overnight, all the people I was faxing called me up and said, could you email this in the future? And so I started hanging out on these bulletin boards where all these journalists were and message boards. And I would say, hey, could I send you press releases? I'm going to start a company in about a year on whatever your industry is. And I said, sure. And originally I was going to do just technology, but I found like today a technology editor, tomorrow a sports editor. It really, people, their beat just changed. Like if the newspaper, someone left, they would just plug them in and say, you
Uh-huh.
now write on sports. So I just started building a general database of all different categories. And about a year later, I had 10,000 journalists that said, sure, send me releases by email. And so I,
Wow.
I was just a matchmaker. Now, the market's changed. Emailing journalists doesn't work today. What happened?
No.
What happened? What happened in the last 25 years since I started that business was media databases that you subscribe to. And so a lot of people can license the media database. It's anywhere from, I've seen them as low as 5,000, but a lot of them are $10,000 to $20,000 a year. And you get
Oh
access to
God.
this giant database of journalists. And
Uh-huh.
here's the problem. I'm a golf club company. I just paid $10,000 for this database, and I look and I'm like, looks like only like 1,200 people are interested in golf
Shit.
clubs. But yet there's, more than 250,000 people in this database. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
they start talking themselves into stuff that's not good. They're like, we could send it to banking and business analysts and, people who write on finance, and, their readers are bankers and business people, and they like to golf. And the truth is, you're never going to get a financial analyst to write, to go from one day covering a stock to the next day writing about golf clubs. It's not going to happen. But to these people,
Yeah.
they're like, it doesn't hurt anything. We just blast everybody. Email is really difficult for people.
Mm-hmm.
And the pivot that I did was over 10 years ago, PR Newswire reached out to us and said, we like what you're doing, and we would like for you to consider adding Newswire distribution like maybe a city or state distribution. And I really, told them, hey, these guys deserve national media attention. And I knew at the time that their national distribution of, like, say, a 600-word press release in the U.S. was over $1,600. And I'm charging my clients just like, I think, $300 at the time. And so, uh, I had no confidence that they were going to work with me, but they didn't run away. And one of the things that I discovered in talking with them is that they have an overnight editorial team that has to be there in case there's breaking news or, a train derailment or something important like that. Or let's say they have to get news to Asian markets, and they have to coordinate with their bureaus over there. But most of the time, they're sitting there idle for hours. And so I was like, I can start setting up and scheduling my releases for next business day and then send them to you. And then your overnight editorial team actually set them up on the wire. And therefore, it wouldn't cost you additional labor because this is labor that's going idle anyways. And so based on that, they finally relented and said, okay, we'll give you a national distribution. And of course, they added a few $100s to my costs. But the truth is that today, a new customer can come in and get a new customer discount and spend $349 to get a press release that would cost you over $1,600 with PR Newswire. So it's a huge advantage. The caveat is you have to be a small business or an entrepreneur or a small startup or like an author or speaker.
Yeah.
Whenever a big company comes in or a publicly traded company, we're like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I want to introduce you to my friend Ken at PR Newswire, and I pass the lead on to them because they're not
Oh,
appropriate for us. So
yeah.
our deal is we're just for small businesses, and so it's one of those things where also a customer can get really big, and then we pass them along directly to the wire or tell them to go set up an account directly at the wire. And so I believe it's mutually beneficial for both of us. And, in aggregate, we move a lot of releases, over 10,000 releases a year. So we're giving 7 figures of money to PR Newswire. So,
Mm-hmm.
they are getting something in return, but we are getting a real benefit. And these small businesses are getting access to a wire, which is really valuable in a day and age where it's hard to get email in through and reach a journalist. And a lot of PR firms are just having to pick up the phone and call to pitch directly. It's just it's so easy because in the U.S. there's largely a duopoly. There's PR Newswire and Business Wire, and journalists like that because they only have to go fish in 2 places and they've got pretty much everybody covered. There is like a smaller player that was trying to get market share, but they kind of given up and said, you know what? We're going to focus on publicly traded companies that don't really want to reach journalists. So we don't care if journalists don't fish in our pond because these people are just looking to meet SEC disclosure requirements and also have their press releases appear on Yahoo Finance and Market Watch and stuff like that. So that's their niche. Despite that, there are other companies in the U.S. with wire in their names, and they're not wires. If it's a company that isn't PR Newswire or Business Wire, it's not a true wire. It doesn't have the infrastructure or relationships with journalists that either PR Newswire or Business Wire does. So that's the big thing is
Can you,
trying to, yeah, go ahead.
because I'm from Asia, can you explain why is that wire thing is important?
That's right.
Why is
So
that? Yeah.
it's important because as a journalist, I get login access. And so I can log into PR Newswire, and all of a sudden, if I'm in fashion, I can see a fashion feed of
Right.
headlines.
Right.
And then even more, I can make it specific to me. Like maybe I don't cover retail fashion. So I could just set up exclusions of like 30 of the biggest uh, uh, retail outlets like Target and JCPenney and stuff like that. If a press release mentions even one of those, it will exclude it. So I can sort of sculpt and refine my feed to be really targeted to what I'm looking for. And this is the exact opposite of their email inbox, which looks like
Which is,
chaos.
yeah.
And so that's the value of it. It really does allow them to hone in and look at all of the recent releases in their industry. And that's the huge value of it. There's no other place like that other than these wires. And it doesn't matter basically which one you use, because the journalists will check both of them. They kind of have to be able to cover their industry. And, and they don't want to go to a third, so they're not going to willingly go and encourage a third one to operate. The downside of that is it makes the wire expensive because they're not as competitive as they could be in price if there was multiple players. But, being eReleases, we've got the really good rate with the newswire. So if you qualify, then you wouldn't have to pay the huge rate that the newswire normally charges. And that's the real value of it is, it is the place that journalists are going to looking for stories. And the journalists that are looking are the obvious ones like newspapers, magazines, trade publications, but also TV, radio, and influencers. For example, I mentioned fashion before. There are many Instagram influencers that have access to the wire, and they can look exactly at the types of press releases that would interest them. And then they can go and report that and include images online, like in Instagram. Take that photo that the press release has with it and, shape it for Instagram and then tag it. And because it's just released from the company, it's before it's in any newspapers. It's before it's in any magazines. It's like they get to break it. And so a lot of influencers, especially in fashion, use it. In addition, on TikTok, there's a guy I follow called Snackalator. And each week he does a roundup of new products hitting fast food restaurants. And he also does one for snacks that are hitting grocery store shelves that are new that week. And he gets all of his pictures from press releases. And he says, yeah, I haven't seen this, so I don't really know whether that's a glaze or something else. He goes, so it'd be interesting to see it when it does come out. But, these are just pictures and photos provided by the companies in their press releases. And so it gives him a huge advantage. And he's got all of these snacks that'll be coming out over the next couple of weeks before anybody else does. And if you just sort of wandered into grocery stores and looked at what was new, you would be late. And a lot of people would have already seen it. And of course, you're not going to be able to do it in all markets.
So he's leveraging on on all of these press releases, and he's getting viewers, followers, and wow, we're onto something here, Mickie. I okay, can you share with us, like, or me at least, what? Okay, why would a business owner, somebody who's doing service or a product, okay, just service, why would they hire somebody to do their press release? Like, what are the benefits? Like, can you walk us through the vision as to how this person can expand and get their name out there?
Right. So, for example, one of the things that we have at eReleases is education. And I have a free masterclass where I train people on what newsworthy press releases they should be doing. I'll be honest with you, probably 98% of press releases fail. And that means they don't get earned media. And that's what we call it when a journalist writes about you, when they cover you in an article or anything like that. That's earned media. And that's the goal of what we're looking for. We're wanting those articles I mentioned in, like Financial Times, The Economist, Wall Street Journal, trade publications. That's what we're looking for. And so what I realized is doing 10,000 releases a year, I see the releases that are working. And I notice patterns. Again, might be that poetry mind. I don't know. But I see them. And so I put them all together in this masterclass, and I provide it free. And it's less than an hour-long video masterclass because people aren't going to watch a 14-hour class. Not now. I think things have changed. People don't have the attention spans that they used to. So my goal is to get them to look at strategic types of releases and consider doing those. And if anybody's interested, the masterclass is at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And like I said, it's completely free. But if someone was to go there, do an audit of them, a little over an hour, brainstorm, they would have lots of ideas for releases they could do. They could then either hire us for writing, but I will encourage them to write them themselves. Press releases are not complex writing. They're very simple. The idea, headline, You're not looking for a fun headline like the New York Post, because again, journalists are busy. They're looking at the newswire and they're going down the feed to see if this is important for them. If they see a pun, they're going to ignore it because they're going to say, I have no idea if that's relevant for my industry. They're quite
Mm-hmm.
appropriate for the newspapers to write for consumers, but a busy journalist is looking for facts and context. So the best press release headlines are often the most boring ones, but they pack a lot of information, like the who, what, when, where, how, and why of your announcement. They get as much of that as they can in as little space. And so anybody can do this. And I have a lot of templates on my website, eReleases.com, and also lean on AI.
I was
I've
just about to ask that.
I've been playing with ChatGPT, and I have to
Uh-huh.
say it was like pulling teeth to get a good press release out of 3.5. And 4.0 came along, and I'm
Uh,
like, things are interesting now. It used to be write me a 600 or 650 word press release because it can always edit down, and I couldn't get it. It would stop at 400 words. And so what I used to do is say, I always came to it with the idea of the press release. If you go to that ChatGPT and say, come up with an idea for a press release, you will be among the 98% that fail. It's only
mm,
going to come up with, it's looked at the internet and it says, I have examined millions of press releases. I don't know which ones were successful. So I'm going to model a good press release and a good press release idea on the 98% of failures.
mhm.
And so never, ever let ChatGPT decide what you're going to announce. Start with the
Oh.
master class, then come to it with an idea of what you want to announce. And then say, say it's a product launch press release. And so now you're like, hey, we're announcing a new product or an update to our product or version 2.0, or we've added AI to our product. And so, then say, give me, and that's it. Also be greedy. Say, give me 10 headlines that talk about my company announcing this new AI feature in our software that is for this particular industry, and then it gives you 20 different headlines, and then you pick the one that you like, and then you say, okay, give me slight variations of this same headline, but try to be as concise and powerful as possible, and see if you can also incorporate X, Y, and Z, and give me 15 versions of that. And all of a sudden, you can get it to really create something that is tight and powerful. Then you're like, okay, now how would you, this is what I do. How would you structure a press release of 600 words on this subject? And then it gives you what it should be in each paragraph. I would then look and say, is there a paragraph that has a use case study? Because I tell you, I get product launch press releases, and it is, here's the product, and here's features, and here's a page to learn more. That is not a story, and a journalist can't do a story arc with that. And so what you
Mm.
need to do is to inject the information for a journalist to build a story arc. And in a product launch, a use case study is the most obvious one. Obviously, you didn't release this product to the world without people trying it. So what was
Yeah.
the experience of someone who had tried it? What was their problem? This company, was losing 13% a quarter because they couldn't get their logistics expenses in check. And so they're using our logistics software solution. And at the end of the 90 days, they saw a 7% profit in their logistics because of using our products. They went from losing money to now making 7% as a result of it. It's a tangible number, it's specific, and then you can have a quote by them talking about, we didn't realize that you could actually solve this through technology. And we are so pleased with how easy and efficient, and even more importantly, how well organized we are now. When someone calls our warehouse and says, "When's my package going to be delivered?" or "When are the people going to deliver my freight?" We can look it up and actually tell because our software can predict where they are on their route, and things like that. So it's like, whoa, that's pretty powerful.
Impactful.
Other
Mm-hmm.
things you can add to it are publicly available data and numbers. Let's say taking the logistics software solution. What's the number of people who fail in the first 5 years of business in your industry? You could actually say, hey, given the fact that 72% of new transportation companies fail in their first 5 years, often because they can't get their logistics costs under control, we have refined our product to really nail in and get people's costs under control. So you've provided the stakes of why your software is important. And so for a journalist looking for a story, he's also trying to decide what is either going to educate or entertain his audience. And so he knows that, wow, my audience of people who are interested in the trucking industry will really like the fact that this product solves something that causes so many of them to fail. The stakes are there. And then it's got a use case study showing a company who used it and what their outcome was and a quote by them. And so, take what you're going to announce and put that in there. ChatGPT is not very good at that. So again, if you take that training that I have that's completely free, it sort of gives you some of these things to watch out for. Then when the ChatGPT is giving you a outline and you put the stuff in there that you want to make sure it covers, and maybe you decide that you want that use case study in paragraph 2 and 3. Maybe 3's got the quote by the person who did the use case study. And once you've built that out, you then ask it, okay, now give me paragraph 1 as you feel would be the best example of that headline. And then you look at it and you first correct any factual errors, and then you ask it to add anything that you feel should have been added. And again, you don't have to rewrite the paragraph. You can just say, hey, in paragraph 1, I really wanted you to also mention X, Y, and Z. Please give me that paragraph again with that information. And then when it's got all the information that you want, you can move on. But if you feel like the paragraph doesn't flow very well, you could say, hey, everything in this paragraph is good, but I really don't like the way that it flows. Could you reword it in perhaps 3 versions? And then boom, you've got 3 versions of paragraph 1. So if you approach it with that top-down approach, you can do this. I actually did videos of this. I've done them as little as 12 minutes, and I'm walking you through it. So it's actually, I probably could have done it in 6 minutes. I've done it as little as 12 minutes. I've done it as long as 24 minutes, breaking this down using ChatGPT 4.0. And so you can use this to write, and then you'd only need eReleases for distribution. We do offer the writing, but I would say try to do it yourself. And if you feel like you want another set of eyes, you can always take your press release, go to eReleases, email it to us, and ask us to take a look at it. We will get back to you in 1 to 2 business days. You don't have to have placed an order, and you don't have to place an order afterwards. Whether you use this or not, we're going to give you feedback as to what we feel about the press release, because we know small businesses don't have big budgets, and we're just there to help. And so we will try to let you know what we think is working, what might need to be improved, or what you should consider adding. And so we really make it easy to work with people. And because at the end of the day, we want you to succeed. Because if you do a lot of releases with us and they all fail, you're probably going to just cross PR off your list. But that being said, you can't ever judge PR by one press release. Remember I told you I gave up on Google Ads after 17 clicks? It's not statistically relevant. And with press releases, you really need to do a PR campaign of several different approaches, strategic approaches. And generally, it's 6 to 8 press releases is a PR campaign. And that's why PR firms work on a PR campaign by PR campaign basis, because if you come to them with one press release, they know that, it could be hit or miss. You don't know how it's going to work. But if you do a PR campaign and then you measure someone based on that, they know that they can have a long-term client once they've proven themselves. Doing 6 to 8 releases, half or maybe even 2/3 of them may result in no earned media. But if 2 or 3 of them do, it could be substantial. And what does that mean? So I had one person who got in one magazine, a waste management magazine, and it resulted in over a contract worth over $30 million. I had a case. I have a case study on my website. If you go to eReleases.com and click on case studies, it's the top one, top left, and it was the Dining Bond Initiative, which was set up to live a very short period during the pandemic when restaurants were closed down. And it was meant to help your favorite restaurant that was closed during the pandemic. We did. I did the press release for free. We sent it out, and it did over 100 articles. We actually quit counting because there was a lot more smaller newspapers that were still picking it up, and we just said we've collected a lot because there's big publications there too, like Wall Street Journal, Barron's, lots of large publications, but also, like I said, many dozens of daily newspapers across the country. Why did it resonate so well? It was positive news and actionable news at a time of uncertainty, and people didn't know what was going on. So it's like, oh, here's some good news. And then also, we were sent home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve here in the U.S. And here was something that someone at home who felt powerless could do by saying, hey, our favorite restaurant that we used to always go on our anniversary, I want to make sure they make it. Could we give them like $100? And it would be backed by a dining bond, which is sort of like a gift certificate scenario. But it really just made people feel like they were making a difference, and generated in excess of $10 million in revenue. What would have cost $349
Oh my
generated
God.
over $10 million in revenue. And so these are things that can happen if you're strategic and you get something out that's newsworthy. That being said, one of my biggest complaints from customers is I'm not newsworthy. And so I had a carpet company in New Jersey that came to me and said, hey, I approached my boss and he agreed that this coming year we can do 12 releases, one a month. And I'm like, okay, what exactly do you do? And we're just a carpet company. We install carpets in our little city in New Jersey. And I'm just like, is there anything that you do that's unique? And I'm like, not really. And I just like, I told him, I said, I don't know if PR is a good fit for you. And he goes, well, I'm just telling you, the boss approved 12 releases. If we don't use you, we're going to use someone else. And I was like, well, let's do business. And, so for 4 months, they did releases and nothing happened. And then the 5th month, we did a brainstorm session, and I was just asking him questions. And I asked, who's your biggest enemy? And I expected he'd say, oh, it's Paul at the Rug Emporium across the street. I can't stand him. But he said, it's the big box home improvement stores. Here in the U.S., it's Lowe's and Home Depot. And he talked about how bad they are for the floor industry. The experience that they give homeowners is terrible. He said that a lot of them will get the homeowners, the home improvement license list for the state, and they'll just call people who have the home improvement certification in the state and say, hey, we have 2,400 square feet of carpet to install tomorrow at 11 a.m. at this zip code. Would you be interested? And they don't know that they're calling carpet people. They just call people on the list that have a home improvement license. So if you're a roofer and you don't have any work right now, you might look on YouTube tonight and be installing carpet tomorrow. And then homeowners wondering 6 months later, why is the carpet sagging? And they have to take all the furniture out and then hire someone to come in and re-stretch it. And maybe, why do the seams all show? Because this person's never done seams before. So it's quite likely that they're going to show, and they're never going to look natural. And so we did a press release that sort of was like David versus Goliath and talked about how bad they were for the industry. And I warned them, I don't think that this is going to get picked up in a lot of places that your customers are going to read, but I do think that some floor trade publications would pick it up. And they said, that's good. They said, we would love that. And I was like, okay, I feel really good with this. So we sent it out, and I was right. Over a dozen floor trade publications picked up that press release and wrote articles about it. That, they had never really talked about this. All of their subscribers to these floor trade publications are other carpet companies. But it's not Home Depot and Lowe's. They're not subscribing to these. They don't care. But so all of these people have these same worries and problems and are trying to figure out, how do we compete against these guys? And so surprisingly, I do tell people in PR, lightning can strike twice. And if you're comfortable with testing it, do a
Mhm.
version of a similar release next. So the next release we talked about was actionable things that you could do to compete against the big box home improvement store. Things you should say, things you should communicate, and things you should guarantee that they can't guarantee, like free stretching if your carpet sags. Coming back and making sure the seams are done right if they weren't done originally. And so a lot of people don't realize that these are factors that having someone who's not someone who hasn't done floors and carpets for 20 plus years wouldn't know. And so it is a bit of education. That press release got picked up. Not as many as that, but we continued to work different angles of this same thing over the rest of the year. At the end of the year, they had their local newspaper had picked them up once. New Jersey Magazine, which was a consumer magazine, picked them up, which was really nice. And those were the only two places that potential customers could have read about them. But in total, they got picked up in about 28 floor trade publications. They put them all together, they printed them out, and put them in a binder and called it the brag book. And every time their salesperson went to someone's house and gave them a quote, they would say, look, we may not come in the cheapest, but the people that come in and install your carpet are carpet installers. They're not
Mm.
someone that Home Depot and
Securing a
Lowe's is
roof.
calling, and just because they have a home improvement license and may have never installed carpet, will show up and install it. And then, once you put all your all your furniture back in your room, the last thing you want to do is take it all out to have it restretched and done properly because it wasn't done right to begin with. And so, so we may come in a few $100s more than other people, but we've been doing this for a long time. We do a good job. And here, let me open this and show you. We've been picked up in Floor Trade Weekly. We've been picked up in Floor Coverings Today. We've been picked up here, the local newspaper. Oh, here's New Jersey Magazine. You familiar with that? Yeah, here we are. And it's like, after going through that, the homeowner is like, wow, there is such a signal of trust with all these people writing about them. Nationwide, these big floor trade publications have picked up this little New Jersey carpet company. And so
Yeah.
and so they started converting 17% more of these consultations. So almost 1 out of every 5 L that they were previously losing, they were now winning. And that's
Mm,
substantial money, for a
yeah.
local business, and gives you a really big edge. And it just shows the social proof and credibility that getting earned media gets. And the truth is, the homeowner never read the article. They just looked, browsed, saw the company name, and it was a signal that this is the right company. They might be $400 more than someone else, but I feel comfortable having them come in, and I know that I'm going to get a good product and that they're going to stand behind it. And that's so important, when people don't pay attention to even testimonials like they used to. It used to be the testimonials were the answer. And now people just have testimonial fatigue, just like we have advertising fatigue. But when it comes to earned media, when a journalist chooses to write about you, that is a type of clout and currency that still works extremely well. And it's the reason that, so many people get excited and have this emotional response to an article.
Yeah.
I read Kickstarter campaigns and blogs and articles, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm championing for this person. This person saw something no one else was doing. They went in, they investigated it, and now they're ready to make the solution to something they've always wanted to do. And I'm like, yes, I want to help them out. So I click through and I see it's like $49 or $89. And I'm like, I really don't need this product, but I really believe in this person and I want them to succeed. So I back them. And the same thing happens when we read articles about people. We really just, we get that sea of trust radius that happens with that credibility. And it is powerful. And it is a really great way to help increase your conversions. And not only with the traffic that comes to you from that article, but taking that article and then putting it on your social media, taking that article and putting it in front of your customers, and taking that article and putting it in front of your leads, because there are some leads that got really close to converting and didn't. Maybe this is the article that will get them over. and have them convert and be a customer for you. I mentioned getting it in front of your customers. Why does that matter? Because every year you lose customers who decide they have to shop around because they are
Yeah.
not sure they're with the best company. If they
Yeah.
read that article and they get that same signal of trust, they're not shopping around that year. They're going to be very
Mm.
comfortable that they're working with the right company.
Mm-hmm. And your price entry point is what, $349? Or is that
Yes, that's our new customer special. So if you go to our website, in the footer of our website, there's a link to our new customer special, and it's our newsmaker, which I think is normally $499 for $349, and that's the distribution. And like I said, I believe you can use AI to help you write a good release, but do get that education first. Go to that free masterclass at eReleases.com/plan, ELAN. Less than an hour commitment. And I guarantee you're going to come away with some really cool ideas that will get you articles. I have one idea in there that never fails. I have never had anybody follow it and not get earned media. And usually they get 8 to 14 articles from one press release. The least we've ever seen is 4. And it is to do a study or survey within your industry. And that sounds like a lot of work, but I can break it down very simple. You ask 12 to 16 meaningful questions to your industry. What's going on in your industry? You know,
we're talking to ChatGPT, right?
you can,
Okay.
but I also think that ChatGPT may not be best suited for this because the best questions are going to come from other people in your industry. So ask your
Mm,
coworkers. Think
okay.
about if you were at a conference, what's the question you would ask somebody because nobody's really reported it? Like, hey, have you noticed that everybody's taking a lot longer to pay our bills? You know, like the clients used to pay in 30 days is now trying to slow talk their way into taking 60 or 90 days. That's a sign that maybe money is tightening up. Could be in your area, but if you ask other people at a conference, you can find out this is industry wide. Are people having trouble with the post-pandemic workplace culture? Are people not wanting to come into the office? Do you even care about that? Do you feel like culture is being lost? There could be questions around that, or it could just be something that's trending in the industry. So you get 12 to 16 questions, ask a variety of them. And I use SurveyMonkey, and I do 4 questions per page so that if someone stops along the way, you've still got some of their responses. And on the last page, you can ask a crazy question. I call it a left field question. And sometimes those are the ones that do really well. We had a local auto repair shop in Pennsylvania, and they did one of these surveys because they were looking for automotive links of authority because they lost their domain name and they couldn't get it back because I think they lost it because it was held through Yellow Pages, which they advertised through. Anyhow, it got lost. The person who had it now wanted like 50,000 for it, so they just picked a new domain name, and they weren't ranking in anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the SEO guy said the most authoritative links you can get will help you quickly. And they thought we're in the automotive industry. Let's get automotive trade publications to cover us. So we did that survey. And on the last page, the crazy question was, what's the strangest thing a customer left in their car while being repaired? And it was an open field where people could write something there. Nobody wrote the same thing. So there was no statistical significance to this, but they were fun responses. And that's what ended up winning. They sent it to other auto repair shops, and they were worried because we don't know enough to do a survey. And I'm like, you don't need to. In every industry, there are a lot of small and independent trade associations. They were members of one. And I think it was like Independent Auto Repair Shops of America or something like that. And so we asked them, hey, we have this survey we put together. Could you send this simple link to your members and ask that they complete this survey? In exchange for that, if we get more than 100 responses, we will mention you in the press release we'll be issuing over the wire. Because they're a small and independent trade association, they get no media attention. The large trade associations do, but they don't. So they will see this as a win-win. And 2/3 of the time, these small independent trade associations will immediately say yes. And if not, you can move on to someone else, or you can try to reposition it, saying we can co-brand the survey, give you a little more authority, put you on the page and stuff like that. So you then get the results, and you look at the results and you figure out what's the number one most surprising response that you got. You kind of want to focus on one question. And if not, you might be able to incorporate a second question, but you're not going to focus on all 12 or 16 questions. You are going to build a page out on your website where you put all the questions and responses together and build a lot of data points there. But you're going to focus the press release on one or two of them. You're going to put a quote in there of like, yes, it's very surprising that 63% of the people in my industry believe that AI is going to replace them in the next 5 years. However, and now you're going to put your analysis in there. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I disagree. I think this is just a common fear with new technology. And I think that it is true that maybe in 5 years, the people that remain will be the ones who know how to use AI. And if you are not in there using this tool and figuring out how to make it work for your business, you may be left behind. It's like, whoa, you sound like an expert. You provided some great analysis in there, a great quote, and you put that together and you send that out. Every time I've coached somebody through the survey, it's been on average 8 to 14 articles. The one that was only 4 articles was in the biometrics industry, and it's very specialized, and I think there's just a lot less people that cover that industry. But they still got 4 articles. And again, it's never failed. It's a little bit of work, but the way I broke it down, it's very straightforward, and it's very doable by anyone. And so again, you just go to eReleases, upload that release when you're ready, hit send, and boom, the magic happens. And that leverage effect that happens with a newswire is really magic. And it's really great that at this day and age, small businesses and entrepreneurs still have access to a wire like that at such an affordable rate.
Wow, wow, I am sold. So, Mickey, have you had successes with like coaches who came to you for press
Yes.
releases?
Yes. So coaches in particular, do very well with surveys because one of the things that they do are branding themselves as an expert. They're an authority in a space. And one of the ways to really cement the fact that you're an expert is to do a survey within your industry. And when you provide analysis as a coach and as an expert, it's like a double punch. Like you really stand out. And again, it's also the type of press release that never fails. And so I think doing a survey or study as like your first release as a coach is one that could really just do extremely well. And it also shows that coaches, I think, are probably better suited for coming up with the right questions. I mentioned that you build out a page on your website and you link to it in the press release where you have all the questions and answers for a survey. The reason for that is if you ask some other decent questions, journalists might go there, look and say, I liked the press release they did, but I am really excited by question 7 that they didn't talk about in the press release. And I could build a great article around that because I have a wealth of information around that area. And that is a really good data point that they got there. And so all of a sudden, you've got another article there. And if you notice that, wow, that was a good idea that journalists got out, you could then do another press release on that question and make it more obvious and known to everybody else. And I think a coach could probably nail down 3 or 4 questions like that a lot of people would resonate with, and you might be able to get multiple press releases from a single survey.
Oh wow, my brain is now. I might need to look at this interview again and try to synthesize everything you said because everything is like a golden nugget to me right now, at least for me. And I'm sure it's also what our listeners are feeling. And we're already 50 minutes in. Mickey, we don't really really. I have so many questions like A/B testing result. I probably need to have you back on for another
Okay.
episode.
I would love
Um,
that. I have a lot of information. 25 years of doing this.
yes.
I have a wealth of information. I love to share. And like everybody else, I give it all away because it's like, it's not valuable if I'm a
You are too
gatekeeper of it.
kind.
I just give it away and try to let a lot of people take advantage of what I see working right now.
Yeah, and now I am sure I'm gonna have you on for another episode. So before I've got uh 10 more minutes for you, so I'm gonna ask questions. Okay, huh? What is next for you, Mickey?
So,
I skip all of the other questions and I'm gonna go straight to the
okay.
closing because I'm gonna have you on for the next
So,
one.
okay. So I mentioned I was a poet, and what happened was I got lost with this business. And for about 25 years, I didn't write poetry. I focused on the business. But about 5 years ago, I started writing poetry again. And I just got a contract last week for my first book of poetry that'll be coming out in early 2026. So it takes a while because it's a small publisher and everything works slow in publishing. But I am excited about that personally. If anybody's interested in checking out my poetry website is mickiekennedy.com, just my name. And again, eReleases is the website. At eReleases.com/plan is that free masterclass. And, don't be afraid to chat, call, or email the office. I don't have any salespeople. There are no quotas, no commissions. And every employee is told that if we're not a good fit or you don't think that we can add the value to a client, tell them that. Be straight, upfront, and honest with them. Just like I told that carpet company at first, I wasn't sure a campaign was going to work with them. Only when they told me we've got the budget and we're going to spend it or lose it. And I was just like, I'd rather you spend it with me because I believe working together we can figure out how to get you earned media. And like I said, at the end of the year, we got about 30 clips with them. The local newspaper, New Jersey Magazine, and about 28 trade publications. So I really do value small businesses. I recognize they don't have the option of wasting money, and so I want
Yeah.
them to work with the best education and information so that they can have a game plan that's more likely to succeed than fail.
And also have their best interests at heart. Mickey, aw, such a kind soul. I love it. There are people like you. Okay, so like attracts like. Thank you so much, Mickey. Okay, I'm gonna pivot to a self-worth question because my podcast talks a lot about self-worth. So the question for you: many people compare themselves to others in the age of social media, leading to feelings of inadequacy. Now, how can individuals cultivate a healthy self-image in the age of constant comparison?
I think the most important thing is just stop comparing. I mean, I think all of us are guilty. Like I had to take breaks from Facebook at certain points because some people's vacations and life look so much better than mine. But I
True.
just I just recognize that you know what? Have a great life. They don't have a lot of
Yes.
complaints. I find the love in working with small businesses. I take the time to have uh, vacations with my family and others. It's not going to look like everybody's Caribbean vacation and things like that. But I also
Caicos
I also
and
have
Turks.
been to places where people are taking these amazing shots and it's super crowded and everybody's getting away for just a second. So one influencer at a time and get their Instagram shot to make it look like it's just them on the beach and it's not. And so I just realized, if you have to compete against others, you're never going to be satisfied. So don't compete against others. Do what makes you happy. Try to find something that's meaningful to you. Try to be a force for good in the world. And I feel like, education and helping others is so important. And, one of the things that I stopped a few years ago was writing checks to charities because I never felt like I was making a difference. And then when I look at the charities, the salaries of people on the board and presidents and stuff, it just is
You're
like,
paying them technically.
yeah. So I give money to individuals, and for example, this last 3 years, there's been 3 poets in Nigeria who got full ride scholarships to great MFA programs in the United States, but they couldn't afford the airfare. And I was like, whoa,
Oh my God.
they set up GoFundMe's, and I knew them because I knew the people at the poets at these universities that were asking people to contribute. So I knew that this was a real program. These were real people. they had links to the actual poems that these students had written and been accepted in journals and stuff like that. So I put down $3,000 so that all three of them could fly to the United States. And I just felt like that's something that, made me feel really good. And I've written bigger checks to other charities where I didn't even get a card or a thank you. And so I do lots of little mini things like that where I help a lot more people. And they emailed me directly, and they were very appreciative. And then it warms me in a way. And I think it's like try to find more connections. And I think that charities often lose connections. And so when we give money, we don't feel fulfilled. And it's not that we want pats on our back, but we want to feel connected to the person. And, and I think that direct giving is one of those ways in which you can really help people.
Wow. Yes.
So that's something I've gotten really passionate about over the last couple of years, is just
I
giving
love it. It's
directly.
like I really felt that in my heart. Sending you all the love and prayers, your side,
Thank you.
Mickie. So what is your heart's greatest wish?
I think my heart's greatest wish is to live in a place where everyone can succeed. I feel like there are so many people who are set up, they believe business is a war, and
Yes.
that we're all going to battle against each other. Years ago, I was sued by a patent troll, and he had created a patent for uploading a press release. And I'm like, and I
No way.
yes, and so
Oh, that's ridiculous.
my lawyer said we just need to settle, and I was just like, okay. And he said they sued a dozen companies on the internet that were all press release distribution type companies. They weren't real newswires, but they were people in the space kind of like I was, but they weren't working with a newswire like I was at the time. I reached out to them, and they just felt like really strange, like we're supposed to be enemies. I'm like, well, the enemy of your enemy is your new enemy, and that's this patent troll people. And so I got all of us together, and we built a game plan of how we were going to combat them. And we decided that we were going to offer them a settlement that was a very small settlement. But we also told them if they didn't take it, we all were going to hire the same attorney, so it wouldn't cost 5 times as much. It would be 5 of us paying this one attorney to do the same work for 5 people.
Yeah.
And we would invalidate their patent.
Exactly.
And they settled very quickly. So, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't, maybe because I'm a poet and not a business guy saying we have to go to war and these are my enemies and I can't pick up the phone and call them. But every single one of them was shocked, saying, I can't believe you called me. And I was just like, aren't you glad I did?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
exactly. And I think that,
Wow.
all across this country, there's room for people to be in the same space and to find a little niche that makes them a little bit different than everybody else. So that, sometimes I even will send people away to other places that I feel are a better fit for me. For example, I'm not the best person for, distributing to Australia or even distributing to Canada. But if you want distribution to the US, I am the best person in the United States for the price. And that I believe 100%. But I will gladly recommend people in other markets like the UK and other places because I know I'm not the best and I'm not going to try to lie or take their money to, or anything like that. I will just say, I know of a company in the UK that I feel would be a really good fit for you. And I don't know I don't know why that's not as common as it should be, but I think that if you're honest and trustworthy in the marketplace, people will notice it. And the funny thing is that each month we get about anywhere from 100 to 200 new customers. And when we do paid
my God.
advertising, when we do paid advertising, we get about 30 people from that, which
You
means that
see? Yeah.
all these other people are coming from somewhere else. And Google says it's not coming from organic traffic. It's coming
Yeah.
from people who are typing in my domain name, who've
Correct.
never visited my website, and then they buy. And that's word of mouth. That's
Yes,
the only
that's
thing it
word of
could
mouth.
be. It's the
Yeah.
only it could be. And it's because we have such a strong reputation for being helpful. And, we really have a lot of integrity. And I think that that is probably one of our most valuable assets at eReleases.
I found my new model. I'm gonna model my my business onto you. I mean, you're doing such a great job, Mickie.
Right.
I
It
would like,
does it does take a while because I'll be honest with
yeah,
you, the first 5 years there wasn't a lot of revenue and there wasn't a lot
exactly.
of sales, but it slowly climbs up. And we've been very fortunate that even during recessions, because I went through the dot-com crash, I went through the housing bubble crash. We grew through that,
Oh,
and during the pandemic, our business went up. And I think that part of it is that during economic uncertainty, people pivot and they have to
yeah.
communicate that. So that's
Uh-huh.
important. But I also think that people sometimes stop advertising, paid advertising, and they look around and say, what's cheaper that I now have more time and resources to put my energy to? And they always say, oh, yeah, PR is one of those things I always meant to try. And so don't wait until the economy crashes to try PR. Really consider it now and take advantage of the opportunities that are there because, you know, a lot of people feel they're too small to matter for PR. But the truth is,
Yes.
a journalist doesn't like covering Google, Microsoft, and Apple. They have to, but they don't like it. And they know that their audience doesn't often pat them on the back and thank them for pointing out a new feature in Microsoft Office. So when they cover a small new business that has a new product or a new tool or a new resource that no one knew, they do get accolades and people say, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I've been looking for something just like that. And often it's small businesses, mom and pops, and these little struggling startups that make these new tools and these new resources because they've determined a new niche or something that no one else is doing. And for that reason, being small and unknown is not a disadvantage. It's actually an asset. They'll actually make it easier for you to get media attention because journalists love to put the spotlight on these unknown entities because a lot of people appreciate it because no one knew about it.
What does your 349 entail?
Which is
Your $349 entail for new customers.
it is a national distribution over the wire, and I think it includes up to 500 words, which is sufficient for most press releases. And you get to pick two industry categories, like two beats, industry beats are in there. And you get editorial review, that's included. You get email spam protection because there are people that just harvest email addresses off of these press releases. And we figured out how to protect you so that you still get your email when a journalist reports to you, but you don't get all of that crazy spam.
Wow, and that's per month basis.
No, that's per press release. So most small businesses don't do a
Oh,
press release every month.
right.
Our average small business does about 3 to 4 press releases a year. So it would be $349 per press release.
Per
And you
press
do get
release.
that new customer pricing and you are able to lock in even after that initial sale a package at that rate.
Okay. Might connect with you offline.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, Mickie, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Well, let's see. Don't be the person who wishes they could go back 20 years to tell you what you should be doing. Just go ahead and start doing it today.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And there you have it, guys. You heard it from the person, Mickie Kennedy. Before we close off, Mickie, I'd like to thank you personally for the work that you're doing for the world and for advancing every step of the way despite the challenges, creating trails for those that will come after you. For our listeners, this has been that one podcast with that controversial name, You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, if you find yourself thinking that you're worthless, you're probably not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself a level deeper. If I'm worthless, then why the heck am I here? It is because your soul have chosen to be here energetically all the way from the ethers. And for that reason itself, you are worthy and you are enough. This has been Mickie Kennedy, your guest of the day, and Nick Nierras, your host, signing off. Thank you so much, Mickie, for your time.
You're very welcome.